You're listening to Resist and Restore, a podcast from the Circle of Hope Pastors where we're extending the table of our dialogue. I'm Johnny Rashid.
I'm Rachel Sensenig.
I'm Julie Hoke.
And I'm Ben White.
And it's the season finale of Resist and Restore. We've been doing this for a year, and this is our last episode for the first season. So this is exciting.
It's like the longest first season ever.
It really is.
Like 2020.
Right.
Exactly.
Yeah. A season as long as the longest year of your life.
So we're gonna have a little reflection today about episodes that people listened to during the first season and talk about those episodes. But first we're gonna start with Talkback. Rachel led us this Sunday in some Talkback. She's gonna get us going here.
Yeah, one of my favorite parts about our Sunday meetings is the talkback time, or the in between time. We often call it, where we, pre-COVID, we would stand around and eat Doritos or whatever the hosting cells brought, and we would just catch up with each other. And now we've been doing that on Zoom, and it's been fun to have just kind of an informal time to share our lives after the Sunday meeting, just about half an hour, to kind of talk about takeaways from the meeting, things that we want to remember, or ask each other questions. And this week we were talking about body prayer, because Ben gave this great message on how there's no such thing as a bodiless prayer, because we have bodies, because Jesus came as the incarnation, and we follow him. So we were reflecting with each other after the meeting on how we use our bodies to pray, how that helps us to actually relate to God. And so I want to throw it out to you pastors here this morning. How do you use your bodies to pray? Are there practices or practical things you do that help you have that time with God, or that interaction?
I'm a cerebral guy, so I think I feel like, 4/5 of my life happens in my head. And so one of my favorite prayer styles is contemplation, and that's about emptying. But for me, it's very hard to empty if I'm just sitting in a prayer chair. And so I use my body to empty. Going on a walk helps me do that. Or if I'm doing work in the yard or in the basement or something that doesn't occupy my mind, that can help me in my discipline of prayer, because I'm focusing on something that's relatively mundane. And so I'm actively working on clearing my thoughts. And so rather than using a prayer word, which would be common in contemplation, Jesus Christ, Son of God, have mercy on me, would be the traditional one. Mm-hmm. I use the act of what I'm doing to center me. And that really helps. If I'm feeling stuck and can't get out of my head, using my body helps me do that.
Yeah, you shared in the afterhang, and I love the afterhang, about a story from the Desert Fathers and Mothers, these early contemplatives in the Christian tradition. One of them told a story about how they just weave a basket and stack up 50 of them and then burn them all. Because it really wasn't about the baskets. It was about the repetitive action that was part of the prayer. It was about weaving the prayer. That's really cool. They were probably Egyptian, so you're in good company with your ancestors.
Love to see it.
Mm-hmm. I often light a candle to pray, and I also use a bowl. My friend Erica gave me a bowl when she was traveling. She bought this beautiful piece of pottery in Portugal and gave it to me as a prayer bowl, which was a new concept for me, but I love using it because it literally fits perfectly in the bowl of my hands when they're together. And it's just a physical reminder of the space, the openness, the posture that I want to have in that time of prayer. So touching the bowl actually helps me kind of come back to the making room that is contemplative prayer.
I was talking about going to the place. In Luke 22, Jesus goes to the Mount of Olives just after he has the Last Supper with his disciples. And those of you that know the story, this is the Garden of Gethsemane. It's this kind of really intense prayer that gets remembered. But it starts out in Luke 22 where Jesus, as usual, goes to the place. And that's just the English word. I didn't look up the Greek to totally understand exactly how all this is working, but it sounds to me like Jesus has a special prayer place. And it's like the place he likes to go. And he goes there probably because no one else is around, but also probably because he likes the smell of the olive groves. And probably because the ground that he knelt on was turfy and soft. You know, he liked to kneel, and he didn't want to kneel on hard stone. There's probably a reason that that was his spot. You know, he had preferences.
Mm-hmm.
And so I like to inaugurate places. And so one of the ones that I like is in my neighborhood, there's a park. And on the edge of the park, some of the neighbors planted bamboo, which makes this like giant forest. And if you kind of skirt around the bamboo, you can get like down behind it next to this kind of swampy part of the lake that I live on. And sometimes there are turtles down there, which is why I discovered it in the first place. But I like to go there because it's out of sight and it's kind of secret. And I said that if ever I see someone coming out of there, the spot will probably be desecrated because kind of the beauty of it for me, at least in my head, is that it's like mine. And it's like, of course, you know, it's not like it's so great. You do have to like kind of step on a couple of thorn bushes to get through. So it is plausible that no one goes there. Only I go there, maybe. And that kind of what I like about it is the decision too. I made it my spot. You know, I have some agency in this prayer life that I'm doing, and it takes that kind of stamp in the bowl. You know, this bowl is my prayer bowl. This isn't a bowl. This is my prayer bowl. And that whispered declaration and then use of your kind of the imbuing of sacredness that you did is part of the power that keeps me going. You know, I made it that. I'm part of this creative action with Jesus. And now we're in this together. We're in our special place, Jesus and me. We're holding the bowl, you know, and it's very physical. I like that.
Yeah. Oh, I love all these physical things or places that we do that help us get to that place. Ben, you are reminding me that I had a place like that as a kid in the woods that I would go to, and it was completely. What's the Pennsylvania state plant?
The mountain laurel.
Yes, it was completely. There was a little stream and there was a little island in the middle of the stream, and this whole place was just surrounded by mountain laurel, like dense. And I would go there and I just felt like it was this hidden place with God and nobody could find me, and it was our spot. Thanks for helping me remember that.
Mountain laurel
Yes.
in May is, if you don't experience that as sacred, your heart is really broken.
Well, maybe not everybody has seen it, but you should look it up if you haven't seen it. Yes, it is. It's beautiful, and it just kind of covers everything. But we heard a lot of different ideas in our talkback time on Sunday. Some people were saying that taking a shower, they pray best when they're in the shower. Something about the water touching their body. I think that that's a sensation that can help us connect as well. What else? What else were Johnny or Ben? Do you remember the ideas that people shared?
People like to do yoga. Yoga's big these days, and it can be Christianized or done by Christians with Jesus. And so that kind of intentional body movement. People said that like something, I don't know anything about yoga, but they talked about a sun salutation with the Lord's Prayer.
Yeah.
That kind of East meets West mashup. I have lots of friends that are interested in that. And I don't disparage that kind of experimentation with the different traditions. I think Jesus can use it.
Absolutely. Yeah. Other people talked about a special chair. I know I have like a corner of the couch that I like to sit on with a blanket that helps me just be still. But all these ideas, I think, are good for helping us kind of tune in to that connection with God that we share. And sometimes it's just a matter of slowing down our thoughts enough to kind of concentrate on it. So yeah, let's keep using our bodies in all the ways that we can to pray.
I'm so glad you're listening to our podcast, and I want to give you some opportunities to connect with us and to make this podcast better. First, if you want to talk back to us, email us at resistandrestorepodcast@circleofhope.net. And if you want more people to hear this podcast, be sure to give us a high rating wherever you listen to this podcast and share it on your social media feed. If you'd like to share money with us, which helps our communications director, as well as our pastors and our whole church, go to circleofhope.net/sharing to do that. Be sure to join us for worship on Sundays at 5 p.m. for our at-home Sunday meeting at circleofhope.net/online meeting. While you're on our website, you can go to circleofhope.net/cells to get connected to Cells, a circle of 10 that generally meets online during the pandemic, so wherever you are, you can make a connection. And finally, pray with us daily at circleofhope.net/daily prayer and circleofhope.net/daily prayer deeper. Thanks for listening.
Okay, so it's our season finale, so we better do a season in review. Just want to bring up our top 5 episodes, the ones that y'all listen to the most. Thank you so much for all of our listeners. We love you, and it wouldn't be extending the table of our dialogue if you weren't listening and talking back. So let's go through. The way this is going to work, y'all, is we're going to look at our top 5 episodes, which you'll help me kind of introduce. And we'll take a little listen to a little clip that stood out to us and then talk about that a little bit. Sound good?
Yep.
All right. So we're not doing this in any kind of order, so don't worry about that. But one of our top 5 episodes was our first episode. We came in with a splash, and people keep loving this episode. It's episode 1, and it's called "What Does Being Beloved Mean to You?" Great start. Julie, tell us about that one.
It was fun to re-listen to. What stood out to me was this quote, something Rachel was saying. She was talking about how getting to a sense of our belovedness is a process. I don't want to spoil the quote. Let's listen to it first and then talk about it some more.
To really grow into this full awareness of our belovedness. It's why we talk so much around Circle of Hope about creating an environment. We need to soak in the environment, I think, for a long time before we can really take this in. And I think it's why anybody who goes to any church meeting to get like a one-time spiritual experience that's going to like change their life is probably going to be disappointed, because we need the environment of these relationships with each other and God, I think, to really understand our fullness.
So good. Rachel, I think you were like naming the complexity of who we are as human beings. You know, our spiritual journey is not a once and done thing. It's not an event. It's not just a feeling. And so getting to our belovedness in Christ is a process throughout our whole lives. We need to keep returning to that. We keep returning to Jesus and keep returning to relationships with people who can help us know the belovedness, our belovedness, and help us live into that, right? So there's like psychological, emotional, spiritual, relational elements to all of that. Do you want to say any more about that?
Yeah, I'm thinking about soil when we're thinking about the environment. It makes me think about how it's not just about us. We're part of this soil that others can grow into. I think it's part of how we know ourselves, by sort of giving ourselves to others and helping to create this sort of gracious place to grow within the church, within this new family that we're forming. So yes, as we go through hard times in life and we bump up against our limitations and our, internal family systems and all that stuff that comes up when you actually get close to people, if there's enough grace and, proverbial sunshine and water there with God, like we realize how valuable we are, not just to ourselves and to God, but to each other.
Amen. So good. Hey, remember when the pandemic started?
Yes.
Yeah.
Barely.
I mean, this is kind of the pandemic podcast. Yeah, what y'all were just talking about, that was in February, before the pandemic.
We were in person to record
We were
that first.
in person.
Yeah, we were in the studio, and then Ben and I left the room to talk about nuclear energy or something. I remember the conversation.
If you want to know the sides of that conversation, Johnny likes nuclear energy, and you can write him at Resist and Restore Podcast at circlehope.net to tell him that it's a bad idea, okay? He's giving me the side-eye hard.
I
right
survived 3 Mile Island. You can too.
Wait. So I was bringing that up because the next episode I want to share is episode 8, which was in April. And big thing happened in between that as we all went on lockdown. And we were like way in lockdown, and there was tons of kind of uncertainty about what was happening. But already, our church was mobilizing to confront this pandemic. It's so great to be a circle of hope and to have access to all these wonderful people that want to talk to us. So Johnny, who is an excellent interviewer, we have discovered, goes along with his journalistic training, I think. But he was interviewing people who are on the front line. That's the name of this episode 8, On the Front Line. And here he is interviewing Iboro about his experience as a physician in a hospital.
So how has your life changed at home? Do you feel okay? Do you feel safe? Do you feel worried about yourself? I mean, you're obviously exposed, and you come home, you have a kid, you have a wife. She's also working in this, presumably. And so how clean is everything?
Probably not as clean as it should be. No, well, first of all, I want to acknowledge it's a difficult conversation for any health family with someone who's a healthcare provider, whether you're a nurse, a doctor, or a respiratory therapist, or whatever you are on the front line. There's a conversation to be had as to what is a risk for my child? What is a risk for my spouse? And for us, it's just kind of, again, our own decision is not like the standard of care per se, but we had thought that the risk of, given our daughter was healthy, we had thought that she was at a little bit less risk for having a bad outcome with COVID. And we thought that it was more important, especially given that we don't really have family here, for us to stay together. Because some of you guys know, the way our schedule ends up working out is sometimes it's like you tag in, tag out. One person comes in, next person goes to their night shift, and so forth. So we felt that it was really important to be able to be there and supporting each other.
Yes, I love Dr. Iboro talking there. Like, I love even how he talks because, y'all know what standard of care is? It's like the agreed upon, this is what you should do, and he was saying, no, there is no standard of care for what you do with your kid when her parents are both physicians. They had to make this really difficult decision about what are we going to do as a family with this crazy disease. And again, this was 9 months ago, y'all. So many variables were up in the air at that point. So I love that we were having that conversation, that dialogue was happening on the internet, and Iboro was ready to share it with us, and Johnny was ready to talk to him about it. What are some of the decisions that y'all have had to make in this kind of pandemic landia that have been tough? Anything stick out at you over the past forever that was hard to kind of make a call about?
Yeah, it's kind of everything.
Yeah.
I mean, especially as a parent, I just am struck listening to that little bit of interview of the stamina of our physicians and frontline workers who have been at this for so long. And for parents who are, we're caring for our kids at home, we're working at home, we're balancing all the time what our kids' needs are, what the needs of our community and our family is. Even just yesterday, it just snowed, right? And my kids want to be outside playing, and the neighbor kids are out and nobody has masks on. So talking to them about wearing masks, kind of setting up some expectations because they're longing to play, right? But they have to stay apart. Anyway, it's really hard. It's hard for kids to have the stamina to stick with this too. And I feel like I'm navigating that all the time as a parent.
Yes. I feel like it's hard with parents too. I had to miss my mom's 70th birthday party this year, and it was so sad because we had been planning it for a year, and it happened right after the numbers increased in Philadelphia this fall, and the lockdown got more serious again. And my husband works for the city, and they had strict orders not to go anywhere for the holidays. And he really felt like it was too big a risk to take. The rest of my siblings were going. And so I missed it. And I felt so sad for my mom. I still made the cake and like delivered it to my sister's car, and she took it there. But it was just a bummer to miss that family time. And I think a lot of people have had to make really difficult choices like that this year.
Yeah, it's been super tough, and we keep going. But there's some hope. It's an amazing thing that we have. What is it? 5 functional vaccines right now, and the light is in the east, and it's growing. So let's keep hoping. And thank you so much, all of you frontline workers. I think the fanfare has kind of died down a little bit. You know, people took down the yard signs, but we're still really grateful for everything you're doing. This episode had people in the medical field, but also people in social work, like out on the street still trying to help people, you know, get in and safe in the winter code blue, you know, all of that kind of human services work. We have tons of people in our church that are doing that. We love you, and we love all of you people that are doing that kind of stuff. God bless you. Let's stick with Johnny, the consummate interviewer, for another episode, episode 5, the Cherry Blossoms, Divine Feminine, and TikTok is the title. Features an interview with one of our singer-songwriters, Gina Master, and I want to play a clip of her talking about her experience with God as mother, and even singing some of her song about that.
I think for me, as a woman, it's become important for me to identify with God in a feminine way. I think for me, in my own faith or spirituality, it feels important to move towards like becoming one with God and seeing that I am not separate. And in order for me to see that I'm kind of made in God's image, I think I need to widen my imagination of God and kind of like change my picture. I think in my mind, God is just automatically male, and then Jesus was male. So I just have a very male idea of who God is. And so to kind of expand my imagination and give myself different metaphors to work with has been really helpful for me to feel connected to God. And definitely in becoming a mother and kind of sitting with all those metaphors and feeling that kind of like desire for that divine feminine mothering thing makes me want to use those metaphors. They are helpful for me.
Just as a mother cannot forget the child she is born, God will not forget us. Our bodies come from her bone, her likeness shows in our love. God will not forget us.
So good, right? Oh my gosh, I love that song, and I love Gina's voice. And hey, did y'all know that they are going to release an album under the Circle of Hope audio art of Gina's music?
Yes,
Can't
can't wait.
Yeah, it's like getting closer to done. They're doing it virtually in the pandemic even. People are making tracks in their bathrooms and stuff. It's going to be really cool.
Yeah, the shower is one of the best places to record music, apparently. Andrew Yang taught us that.
Well, actually, Gina and Mikey released their first album, which you can find on Bandcamp. It's called Songs for Singing, and they did it all in their bathroom, I think, in the Philippines. So
Wow.
these people that we have in our church are so great. And one of those people is Julie Hoke. I want to play a little thing from her in that same episode 5, from spiritual show and tell, which is just such a great piece of this podcast. I don't have any problem saying that, because it's not. It's like, what is God doing with all of the beautiful people in the world who are inspiring us? And how are we consciously just nourishing ourselves? How are we sitting at the table of the body of Christ and receiving all of its goodness? Even sitting at the table of creation and all the things that are, to receive from God their goodness. Here's Julie bringing us a quote from Edie Hilsum. Am I saying that right, Julie? Is that how it's?
So, yeah.
Yeah, Edie Hilsum. I want to get her reflection in here before we move on to the next episode.
I was actually reading some writings by this young Jewish woman, Edie Hilsum. My spiritual director shared this with me, and it was nourishing my soul, because she died at the age of 29 in Auschwitz. And she left behind a diary and over 70 letters. She says, to be truly inwardly happy, to accept God's world and to enjoy it without turning away from all the suffering there is. Even if you live in an attic and have nothing but dry bread to eat, life is still worth living. There's so much to relish. Life is rich, even though it has to be conquered from minute to minute. And she wrote that March 24th, 1941.
I said it then, I said it now. Life is still worth living, even if you have to live it minute to minute. I love that, Julie. Do you remember sharing that?
Yep, I sure do. It feels like life is still that minute-to-minute living as this pandemic stretches on.
Yeah. But we're in it together. And I really appreciate all of you bringing not just yourselves, but even all the things that you're gleaning from everywhere during that spiritual show and tell time. We'll be doing that after this. Let's hear now about episode 12, which Johnny wants to tell us about. What was the title of that one, Johnny?
Turning to the Healer. It was an interview with one of our leaders in Circle of Hope, Jimmy. Rachel, his pastor, was interviewing him. And I just have to say, you can see the connection. When the interviewer knows her subject, you can really draw a story out. That's why you would read the book before you interviewed the author. But Jimmy and Rachel live in community together. There is a relationship there that really makes the interview evocative. And at one point, she asks a great pastor question to Jimmy. Jimmy is in recovery and he shares that process. And she wonders how Jesus is going to fit into that. And Jimmy shares about that. And then Rachel asks him, you're Jesus, Jimmy. People call you that. People know that you embody Jesus. What makes Jesus so significant to you? Listen to this clip.
What's so special about Jesus? What are the connections you see between the two of you? What do you like about him?
I like the human showing of Jesus a lot. I like, I was saying earlier, I like being a neighborhood guy. I grew up being a neighborhood dude, and Jesus just reminds me of the best neighborhood dude,
That's literally what Son of Man means, everybody's guy.
Yeah. I think that's what really got me there. I think of a lot of the things, like when he was praying before his death, and, he was crying and not wanting to do it. He got angry, flipped tables. There was a lot of things that I could relate to with that. Just the way he loved people. It just sounds cool. You know what I mean? He's got a cool story.
A pretty miraculous story.
Totally, yeah. Yeah, that's right. He does have a miraculous story.
I love that. I love Jimmy being a neighborhood guy. I like connecting him about that. He's an Eagles guy. I'm an Eagles guy. So we have that bond. And I think that, Jimmy's saying, I'm a neighborhood guy and Jesus is the best neighborhood guy. I think that's the beauty of the incarnation, that Jesus meets you right where you're at and showcases that he also experienced that. How is it possible that this Palestinian rabbi became a South Philly neighborhood guy to Jimmy? I mean, that's incredible, isn't it? And so my question to y'all is, what's so special about Jesus to you?
Going with Jimmy, what are my best aspirations? Or what is it in me that I would like to see come to full fruition? And that kind of projection is welcome, I think, with Jesus, because he wants us to, develop into our fullness who we are, who we really are. So the first thing that comes to my mind, which unfortunately there's not much biblical evidence for, but Jesus has to be a really good poet. No, there's tons of biblical evidence for it, actually. All the parables are so poetic, so imaginative, and this creative storyteller. That's the thing about Jesus that I love the most. He's getting at something that is so simple, it's completely confounding.
I love how Jesus sees people and listens for what is behind what they're saying. Like he listens deeply, and his responses, first of all, he asks more questions than he answers often. And the questions get at the heart of what Jesus is trying to get to. So even when a question comes at him from a certain direction, he can get into a deeper reality by asking a question back. And that I marvel at that.
I really appreciate Jesus's vulnerability in his humanity. Like it still blows my mind that like he needed to be cared for like a baby, when he was a baby. But even into adulthood, how like he really, as he's relating, he's not doing this self-protective thing that we are so trained to do. He's really putting himself out there and like taking hits and getting all kinds of people are calling him all kinds of names like son of the devil and trying to trap him, and he maintains, even in his vulnerability, he maintains this sense of self, this unrejected sense of self with God. And I just really, that comforts me and that encourages me and gives me something to go for. And by the way, I love, Johnny, what you said about that interview with Jimmy, because Jimmy, like watching Jimmy walk around South Philly, it really is like that. Like he knows so many people just on the street, and he's kind of relating in his own humanity and knowing people and being known. And it's a good thing.
What about you, Johnny? What's your Jesus standout?
Well, the first miracle he does in the Gospel of John is that he turns water into wine and makes the wedding a way better party. I mean, that's a great thing to do, and I like that he enjoyed it, that he's having a good time, The other thing he did was he fed 5,000 people, through their faith, so Jesus is hosting people all the time. And I love that spirit about him. G.K. Chesterton says a missing element in the Gospels of Jesus' characteristic is his mirth. And so we don't see this a lot, but I think Jesus laughed a lot. I think in general, he was making people laugh and having a good time and looking for joy, and I love that. But he wasn't hopelessly optimistic or foolish. He suffered too, and he had deep sorrow as well. And so he feels all the feelings. And so when I feel down, Jesus is with me. And if I feel good, Jesus felt that too. That kind of solidarity to me, that really matters. And I feel that connection, that bond, that really family bond with Jesus. Jesus is my brother. That's what I love about Jesus.
Wow, we really love Jesus. That's great.
It's pretty good.
Let's do one more. We're doing the top 5. We've done 4 episodes. One more, episode 9, A Poorly Installed Countertop, which was a stolen title from Pete Enns, who we're a big fan of him. So shout out again to Pete Enns. But Rachel, tell us about this one.
Yeah, well, I really want to shout you out, Ben, because I loved getting the chance to interview you about the Bible, because you have this really refreshing perspective. You grew up in Circle of Hope. And so your experience of learning the Bible is different than a lot of us who've grown up in more of the evangelical tradition, or whatever tradition we did grow up in. Your tradition was kind of this immersion in the family and kind of experiencing relating to God, which is, as you say in this quote that I want to point out, is the point of the Bible. That it's not a record of like exactly what happened that neatly fits together in chronological order. It's an invitation for real people to keep relating to God and experience how God is relating back to us in love. So let's play that clip real quick.
It's a book that was made for relating. God uses the Bible to relate to us and to maintain a people who can relate to God. That's the point of the Bible, is making something that's like reliable, not for like exactly what happened, but for love and for action and for making more love happen in the world.
Ben, when you say that it's for making more love happen in the world, you describe that so well in this interview. You even talk about the Bible being like this muddy river that kind of carries us. And so I get this sense of like adventure and discovery in your ongoing experience of getting to know God through the Bible. And you even lead us in the church in that way through, workshops that you and Johnny have offered in getting to know the Bible.
GTKTB, getting to know the Bible.
We're really good at titling things. It's great.
It kind of sounds like
acronyms.
NKOTB. That's why I liked it. New Kids on the Block. So
I see.
I'm trying to get that going,
Yeah, but anyway, can you just give us another taste of that, like that flash flood of, like, I actually experienced a flash flood, and so I love that.
Yeah,
metaphor.
you said that in the interview. Yeah. We didn't talk about that enough in the interview, actually. I'd rather hear the flash flood story, but I'll just riff on this for a second. Muddy roar versus like a neat pitcher. Like if the Bible is living water, it's much wilder than often it gets pegged as, and I think that's kind of one of the projects that I felt like I want to help people do, both in getting to know the Bible series that we're doing, these like online Zoom sessions. To our credit, we planned them as Zoom sessions before the pandemic. High five, Johnny. Because it was whatever. That's beside the point. Check it out at wayofjesus.circleofhope.net/gifts for growing. We'd love to have you there. But yeah, it's a lot. I feel like the project is to get the expectations for the Bible to be this neat, boxed up, very simple kind of thing. It's like what Julie was talking about a minute ago about what she likes about Jesus, is that he asks more questions than he answers.
Mm-hmm.
I actually looked it up. Jesus was asked 307 questions as recorded in the Gospels, and he was asked 183, of which he only answers 3. I don't know if that's true. That's just like the top Google result, but it is something like that. And yeah, reading the Bible is not this like neat process of figuring it out and getting all the right answers. But unfortunately, people have related to it that way for at least 100 years or so. That's been the dominant relationship with the Bible, is this kind of answer book, this kind of instruction manual for life, and it's not that. It's not that. It's much bigger than that. Granted, you can get some instructions in there, and obeying Jesus is a good idea and a good place to start, but it's not that simple.
Yeah. It's for this dialogue with the Holy Spirit. And one of my favorite things that you said that I couldn't fit into a little quote there was how you can, when you install a countertop, no matter how well it's installed, you can feel the seams. And we're like that as human beings. Like we've got seams. We don't fit together all neatly and perfectly, like in a box. Our lives are not like that. And so the Bible is for actually getting to know our real selves in Christ as God wants to know us, and as we have a chance to know ourselves and be known. It's a messy, hot, wild, kind of high adventure, not neat process. And so I'm grateful you brought that out for us.
Thanks. And I'm grateful for all of you listeners that listen to all of these episodes and more. There's much more we could talk about, much more that we would want to remember, but those are the top 5 episodes that you listen to. If you want to talk back to us about any of them, or if you go back and have a listen, we still want to hear about stuff that happened 9 months ago, 10 months ago, a year ago. Write to us at resistandrestorepodcast@circleofhope.net. Thanks for listening. We love you.
This last section is spiritual show and tell. We want to share what has been nourishing our souls this week, and hopefully it will nourish you too. So, pastors, who wants to get us started?
Well, I can start. Mine is not very deep, but I have.
Did you cash in on GameStop, Rachel? You got a lot of money.
No, I got up this morning and realized I had time to make scones. I love really well-made scones, and so I made
Scones.
Scones?
That's how the British say it on Great British Baking Show.
I thought a sconce was a light fixture on a wall.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
I've never made a scone. I don't know anything. Don't listen to me.
Well, the British people would know, so maybe I'm saying it wrong. But anyway, I made these blueberry lemon scones, and they were delicious, and I got to deliver them to my family members on my way out the door. But I've just been really appreciating the time to cook in this time of quarantine when we're at home so much more. That's been one of the gifts for me, is being able to, make stuff, just have more space in my life to kind of make stuff from scratch and appreciate the process and eat good food. It's a gift.
I'm sheepish about what I'm going to say because I feel bad that it nourished my soul. But I'm just telling you, okay?
I object to both of the introductions so far.
I know, everybody's
this is
adding
not that
qualifiers.
Deep. This is stupid what I'm about to say. Like, no, if it fed you, it fed you, okay? And Luke, leave this in.
Here's the thing. No, because, I watched the presidential inauguration as a part of my life, okay? That's what I do. I watched everyone, and I watched American Carnage and the whole thing. That was Trump's. The title of his speech was American Carnage, by the way, so you kind of got an idea what was going to happen in the next 4 years. Anyway.
It's like a Jean-Claude Van Damme movie. I didn't remember that. Wow.
He's a wild guy. Joe Biden goes up. First of all, Amanda Gorman nourishes my soul, right?
Wait a sec. Was the inauguration less than 2 weeks ago?
Yeah, it was the 20th.
Wow, I time warp. Sorry, keep going. I'm very interrupty.
Amanda Gorman, the poet laureate, it's really great. She nourished my soul just because she was young and doing it and believed in herself. The religious quality of the ceremony, and here's the shift for Johnny Rashid. Normally, I would say, this is idolatrous civil religion. I can't take part in this, or I'll be made impure, And I guess over the last 10 years, I thought, well, you can appreciate the longing for hope, the desire for something new, even the desire for salvation, They're looking for something. And by the way, I know what they're looking for, and it isn't Biden, but they're longing for something because we had such a vacancy of it. So that was a hopeful moment for me. And specifically about what I think is good for the United States, but for Christianity too, is that for the first time in a long time, we have a very conspicuously Christian president. And I'm not honoring his faith particularly, though I think it's good to strive to have faith. I think it's good for people to see different kinds of Christianity, different streams of faith that aren't just like Christian nationalist Marjorie Taylor Greene type of thing, but there's all sorts of things that you can enter into, and you don't have to reject Jesus altogether because you saw the worst example of it. That's encouraging to me. And by the way, in Circle of Hope and on our daily prayer right now, we're working through Richard Foster's Streams of Living Water. And in our Sunday meeting plan, we try to express different streams of faith so that people can enter in as they can. They can latch on to something that works with them, and they don't have to fit into some box of Christianity. Rather, they can see, you're centered on Jesus, but it's boundless what you can do with God. And I appreciate that opportunity. And I'm hoping that the soil in this country gets tilled for faith. That nourishes my soul, gives me hope that new people will come to faith, because I think the soil is a little bit more nourished now.
Play has been nourishing my soul in the last 24 hours. With this snow, I got to go out with my kids to sled, and I realized that I needed it as much as they did. Easy to forget that as an adult. I think that I am thinking my kids need to play, they need to play, but I forget that I need it too. It was so fun to sled. We were sledding in the park across the street from my house, and I realized that even to do that, I had to get over my own mental barrier, I think, of like telling myself that I have other things I need to do. I think sometimes it is more mental than physical barrier for adults to play. We have to like be able to make ourselves the space to engage, and it feels good. The endorphins, the laughter, the squeals, the whole neighborhood was out. It was so fun. And it's a huge hill, so there's plenty of space for people to be out there safely, wearing masks, sliding down the hill. It almost felt close to normal. And that brought me a lot of joy, both for myself, but really just to see my kids having such a good time, and kids in the neighborhood, which quite honestly, I have not seen. I've barely seen the kids on my block in this last year. And that hurts my heart to know that kids are suffering through this, and they need space to play. So it nurtured my soul to be outside yesterday.
And sledding is a great activity for mask wearing, because you got your face you need your face covered anyway,
right? So you're not eating it
so your
as you're
so your
going down
nose
the hill.
doesn't fall off. Like, it's a good thing. I actually put play on my Trello. I live and die by Trello, and Trello is nourishing my soul these days,
Tell
because I have
people
a
what
list
it is if they don't know.
Yeah, I have a list of things to do. It's just a digital list. It's a project management software for teams, and I use it for managing my own projects, including just like doing the things that I know need to be done. And of course, then that relates to George MacDonald. Listen to this poem. The worst power of an evil mood is this: it makes the bastard self seem in the right self. Self the end, the goal of human bliss. But if the Christ self in us be the might of soaring God, why should I spend my force with a dark thing to reason of the light, not push it rough aside and hold obedient course? And in the dark moods that I've been experiencing, what Grandfather MacDonald is saying here is, do what you have to do. It will help. Just push it aside, push that dark mood aside, and do the thing. Do something that you know you have to do. Obedience is a path out of whatever it is you're stuck in, and it is not a reasoned path. This doesn't make sense. Like, that if I do the thing, I'm like, that the mood's gonna go away. There's no reason why doing the obedience actually affects the feeling, but it does. And it's not so the Herculean task many people might think would be the pushing aside. I need to think something else. Actually, what he's saying here, and this is elemental to his theology, is you have to just do the something else. Just do. Don't let the dark mood lead you, and do what you know you have to do. So look at your Trello, Ben, and do something that you've already discerned is good. No matter how bad you feel, do a bad job at it. It doesn't matter. And it really has helped me in this kind of feeling constricted, and this kind of just smallness that normal life is imposing upon me these days. Okay, I'm going to do this little thing. I'm going to do what I need to do. I'm going to move things from my to-do column into my done column on Trello, and it has brought me joy. I look at my completed list, and I'm like, okay.
we're so happy you listened to this last season of Resist and Restore. For the next 5 weeks, we're going to take a break, but what we're going to do in those weeks is replay the episodes that we highlighted on this episode. So if you're just catching up, over the next 5 weeks, we'll republish those 5 episodes, so you'll get a chance to experience them again.
And we're working on some great stuff for season 2, more interviews, more connections with our compassion teams in Circle of Hope and the good work that they're doing. Look forward to that, and we'll look forward to hearing from you in the meantime. Write to us, right? Resist and Restore podcast at circleofhope.net.